We are currently living within the Themeparkification of Europe. Now, what do we mean by this? We're getting at the idea that with the demographic change to our capital cities and the constant arrival of tourists and the businesses and sellers that cater to these tourists, essentially our once great capital cities are now just becoming novelty theme parks. Now, we're not obviously talking about what's on the screen right here. Alton Towers does look quite fun. Not personally my cup of tea. But let's just go over the basic background of what a theme park is. A theme park is essentially an attraction you go to see roller coasters, and then you get sold a bunch of slop on the side, like hot dogs and slush puppies. So, how does this really translate, though, to a city? Now we're going to look at it like this. Instead of a roller coaster, let's take a big monument, like a Big Ben, a St. Paul's Cathedral, a Brandenburg Gate, an Eiffel Tower. They're your attractions, right? They're what you go and see. These are great, lovely buildings that bring in viewers. And there's nothing inherently at all wrong with these buildings existing or people coming to visit them. They're sites of wonder. They create great imagination. They represent the soul of Europe in a way, in their magnitude and their size. No, what we're getting at though is how the city dynamic has sort of changed to cater to people seeing these places. And the big contributor to this is the demographic erasal of native populations within cities. If you look at here on the screen at the ethnic breakdown of capital cities, I mean, it should be no surprise, but you see, look, in London, 36% of the population is white British. Pre Boris wave, may we
Yeah,
add as well.
pre-Boris
So
Way,
that's
which is insane.
exactly. So it's probably even lower, right? We can assume it's lower. Berlin, very similar, probably again a bit, probably even lower that's presented on your screen. The point we're making is the capital cities that contain all these great, wonderful sites of European excellence aren't populated by Europeans anymore. They're populated by low income migrant workers that essentially work jobs either catering the few natives that work there doing the money making things. So, for example, in London, they either work in a Pret servicing the bankers that work in Square Mile, or they work in slop transnational corporations that basically feed the tourists coming in. Or at the very worst, they're the scammers, right? So you see our point. The capital cities aren't any more longer for the native population. What is there that remains of the native population, however, are these landmarks. So you have this weird dichotomy where the creations built by our ancestors, built by the population of said countries, remain. They attract people because they're obviously authentic to that place, and yet they don't live in this place anymore. There's no real soul to it anymore. London's essentially just either a place to do business and economic activity, or it's a place for tourists to come in and marvel at what was once a place of importance and once a place that had a real identity and was connected to its people. I've yapped for long enough. If you've got thoughts, Muslim bro, please come in.
Yeah, I mean, the other day, me and you were walking around in London, right, with our good friend Egyptian bro, as we'll call him, and we were basically walking through Leicester Square, and there's strip clubs, there's casinos, there's an M&M shop, which I still don't know what. Obviously, they sell M&Ms, but like, why? Do you know, like, how many M&Ms can you sell? And at this point as well, when we were looking this up, there was a Batman statue, I think, at some point. What really disturbs me about this in general is, for me personally, as well, it reminds me of when I go through Marseille or Paris. You have really beautiful old buildings built by the native population. And what ends up happening is that the native population doesn't necessarily use those buildings anymore, or it doesn't have as much significance as it did in the past. And so what ends up happening is that this thing becomes mythified. It becomes mythic in some way, and therefore it attracts tourists, like you mentioned. But when those tourists come, it's not the native population, one, that ends up benefiting economically from this. But two, it's not the native population that is able to represent it in the first place. Because you
Hmm.
have, as we go over here, in Rome, for example, random scammers, right, usually from African descent, who want to sell you a bracelet. Or in Paris, you have these like Indians or Moroccans or like Egyptians who are basically just wanting to sell you bottles of water, right? Or even worse, by the way, they try to sell you like watches. They put it on your wrist and they're like, hey, you pay now, you try, you pay, allez, you pay. It's like, obviously, by the way, they don't speak French either. Or in London, or even in a beautiful town like Stratford-upon-Avon, you have these shops that say, you know, they're selling you England merch, but then they're ran by some random Indian. Like, like the British person even selling the merch. Why? Because it's not inherently British. Having an I Love London shirt isn't British. And what I mean by that is it's not British essence. And therefore, what is British essence? the buildings, the architecture, the culture isn't even represented by British people, nor do the British people benefit. And in this case, it's not just the British people, it's in every European capital. And this just leads to a weird dynamic of tourists coming in to see Britain, to see Paris, to see the essence of these beautiful cities and these beautiful countries, to only get this, just slop, the same way you do in a theme park. You come in for the ride, you get sold a hot dog, you get sold cotton candy, you get sold some random teddy bear. So that's my points, Christian, bro. Do you have anything else to add as well?
Yeah, no, you make a good point. I mean, it's like it's the fact that these are like cities of great cultural importance, but they're not really. When you visit them now, you don't really inhabit it anymore because there's no one inhabiting these places. If you get what I'm saying, you're merely going to kind of consume it. Like you don't visit Paris anymore, experiencing the Parisian way of life because there aren't Parisians left. If you get what I'm saying. You just consume Paris. You see the sights on the bucket list. You buy from a kind of like catered restaurant that's sells broadly French food. The business probably ran by like an Algerian or whatnot, not an actual French person. You just kind of consume an idea of what they want to sell you as Paris. And I think those I Love London tat hoodies kind of represent that the most. You know, you're simply buying that hoodie just to kind of show you consumed London. You did, you know what I mean? You went to London. You didn't really actually like embody the London vibe or the London culture because it's gone, isn't it? Essentially, you didn't really interact with any like London locals because they're either working a high-end job and then quickly commuting out of the city. The only people you're really going to interact with is like a moody Indian shop worker when you buy when you buy a bottle of water in your shitty London hoodie. You know what I mean? Like you don't interact with the people. I mean, like we went to Rome in the summer. Like the only interactions you have are with some kind of Arab running an Italian restaurant or some guy fresh off the boat from Benin trying to like scam a wristband. You don't meet the Romans. You don't see the Romans. And that's the big issue. And it's kind of like a microcosm of what's to come for Europe. We had once this great civilization. People obviously want to see that because who wouldn't? I would call it hubris. It's the greatest civilization that's on earth, proper European civilization. But as the Europeans move out, all that's left is our buildings. And all that happens is people will come and see what was once there. Take it as like an example from the Romans. That was once there. But now what is the Roman Empire once it's gone? Just people looking at the Colosseum and the ruins of that empire. And that's sadly kind of what is likely happening in Europe as demographics become as they are.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to add as well, just as a caveat to this, with a little bit of ray of hope, is that the only thing that's left that can truly represent a culture or the essence of a city is the museums. Like, I remember, Christian, when we went to Vienna, the only time it truly felt like we were experiencing Vienna was in the museum that we went to. Seeing the Napoleon painting, seeing all the art there. And even the people who were selling us the memorabilia were Viennese, right? Like they were from Vienna. And it was lovely because it felt like they were proud to be working there. They were proud to be able to represent, and you can't change that, right? And so that for me is the only time I can really say that when you go to a major city in Europe, if you truly want to experience the essence, go into the museums. That's it. I know it's kind of like a weird side point, but I think if we have the theme parkification, my apologies, of Europe, let's try and see if we can have the museumification of Europe in terms of showing what's best and having the people who benefit from that, the people who are most proud to represent that, being British people. Naturally, it's going to be the case anyway, for whatever city in Europe. You're going to be proudest of your city, you're going to be proudest of where you come from, you're going to be proudest of the culture that you've developed over time and what you use to represent that, whether it be through art. Mainly in museums, it tends to be through art. And so if we can maintain that, I think there is a ray of hope in the long term. In the long term, there's a ray of hope. Because obviously,
the real ray of hope is reversing demographics.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, this is the biggest change that we could do. But if nothing were to change, then at least we can maintain those beautiful museums.
At least we can remember ourselves in a slightly more authentic way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Quite black pilling. But yeah, just a short one for today. But I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah. God bless you all. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll speak to you soon. Leave a comment if you have any thoughts on what we've spoken about. We do enjoy reading your comments. You tend to be very smart people, because me and Christian bro are incredibly intelligent. No, I'm only kidding. But
Oh, yeah, of
anyway,
course.
God bless you all. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.